Hi, this is Dr. Leonard Shao, and this is the Isolation Survivors Toolkit. This is an addendum to the Home Ergonomics 101 that we did with the dining room office and the dining room desk. And these are stretches and exercises for the home office. Here's a disclaimer that basically states that I'm not able to evaluate you if you have any issues or injuries that we need to look at. Therefore, if you are able to consult with a healthcare practitioner, you should do so. And if not, you should use your own judgment and precautions to not injure yourself while participating in this video. So here's how to use this program. You can look at the whole program all at once. You can look at it in pieces or in stages. You can go back to the slides or the videos as a study guide, and you should feel free to stop or rewind or review and practice any of the exercises on these videos. And again, a caution that you do not want to hurt yourself and therefore don't do anything that hurts. The first part of this program, the first video, we're going to talk about the neck, chest, and shoulder. And these bullet points are there as to some of the things we're going to have as subject matter for this. We're going to talk about breathing, stretching of the upper trapezius muscles, and be careful not to overstretch. Now, if you overstretch, what will happen is you'll get a reflexive spasm. So while doing the stretches that are described in this video, I want you to do them just to a threshold where you begin to feel the stretch, and then as the muscle relaxes, you can increase the stretch or you can stop the stretch at that time and not try to overstretch. And of course, we're going to be looking at the chest and engaging the mid-back, as well as stretching the shoulder. Feel free, again, to stop any of these videos at any time to review and to practice.
Hi, I'm Dr. Leonard Shao, and this video is going to be part of the series of Home Ergonomics, the home office, and we're going to be looking at stretches and maybe some strengthening exercises for our neck and mid-upper back. So this is going to be a progressive set of exercises, and then we will talk about strengthening exercises in the next video. So we're sitting at our desk, we have poor posture. We need to sort of think about what we can do to help that. One of the things we can do is we can take breaks, and I really suggest that you take breaks periodically through your work hours. Now, if you're sitting for 2 or 3 hours in the morning, you should take regular breaks in between that, and then obviously, hopefully, you'll take a midday break, and then you should take breaks periodically through your afternoon hours. We're going to start with the basic concept of a core position. Now, if you think of this as your core, and I mean the whole area all the way around your back and your front, and we can think of that as a cylinder that's holding our body up so that our chests are open and free and our diaphragm can come down and we can breathe through our whole body. That would be the first concept I'd like to get you to understand. And that means that when I'm sitting like this, I'm not sitting with my chest up and my body in a really stiff position, but I'm sitting in a relatively normal position on my sits bones with my body supported by this central cylinder area. Now, when I breathe, I'm going to breathe into the front of my abdominal area all the way down towards my pelvis. I'm going to breathe around to the sides of my back and to my back itself. So that basically is going to be in a very neutral position. I'll show it to you from the side as well. Now, we can breathe through our noses. Now, know that this is not a mirror breath. What I mean by a mirror breath is when you're sort of looking in the mirror and holding your abdominal muscles in and making yourself either look strong or like you're nice hollowed out. This is not an aesthetic visual for your abdominals. It is more for a strength and supportive position. So again, we're going to breathe in through our nose. We're going to keep our waist lifted, but we're not going to be pushing our chests out or back. So our shoulders can hang in a more normal position, and we're just going to breathe. Now feel free to pause the video at this point in time and practice that breath for yourself if you like. The next thing we're going to look at is stretching for the neck. And I like to do this in a variety of different ways. Now, if I'm sitting at my office, in my dining room, and I have a chair, and I like to have a chair that does not have sides on it, I'm going to hold on to the side of the chair. Now, this is my left hand, but if you're looking at it, it'll be your right side. And we can sort of do this together. So you can hold on to the side of the chair, and you can slightly lean, and that will brace or stabilize your shoulder. Now, all the movements I do will be up into this area. So I can do an angle where I'm doing over to the side, and I can breathe for 20 or 30 seconds, and I'll feel that begin to let go. And if it lets go, I can stretch a little bit more. Now I can also change the angle a little bit and go forward, and I'll get some of the muscle a little bit more towards the back. And if I turn a little bit more, I'll get more of these muscles towards the back. I can also assist that, and I'm going to do the other side since I just did my left side, your right side. And I'm going to lean over to your right, and I'm going to breathe, but this time I'm going to use my hand as an assist. Now I'm not going to pull hard, but I'm just going to increase that stretch a little bit and breathe for 20 or 30 seconds. Remember to check your cylinder, your core, so that you're not collapsing forward or backward. And I got a little bit more of a stretch, so I just increased that a little bit. And now I'm going to change that angle a little bit, and then I can go this way. The next thing I can do is interclasp my fingers and put them behind my head, and then gently pull my head slightly forward so I feel the pull on both sides. And again, remember to keep this stable. For about 20 or 30 seconds. Now, let's just relax for a second, and we'll talk about some other assists to this particular type of stretch. Now, I'm sure everybody has a towel at home, and if they have a towel that doesn't have to be this long for this particular stretch, but we can place the towel around our heads and then hold on to the side like we did before, and that gives us a little bit more of extension if our arms are a little shorter, if we can't move our shoulder as much as we would like, and do the same kind of stretching. Make sure you keep your core. I just let my core go, so I had to recorrect. And again to the other side. I'll give you a couple of seconds to complete that. The next thing we want to think about is this area up and through here. This is the pectoralis or upper chest area. Now, if we're sitting in a closed position, these muscles tend to shorten over a period of time. And if they are chronically shortened, when you go to try to sit up, the shoulder will not go back into its proper angle. That will cause other problems that we can talk about later, dealing with the shoulder or the rotator cuff muscles. But what we want to do is we want to keep our core intact, so that allows our shoulders to come back as far as we can normally, and then we can do some other stretches involved with strengthening the mid and upper back muscles and stretching this front area. Now, the first exercise is called the letter W. And you can start with your hands up here and bring your elbows sort of down and back behind you. Now realize I'm still breathing and keeping my core, and bringing my shoulder blades slightly together. I'm not going to try to push it. I'm not going to extend my head. I'm not going to arch my back. I'm just going to bring my arms down to where I feel a little bit of stretching through here and some tightening in the mid-back. So that is the letter W. You can also do a row. Pretend that you have something in front of you and just bring your shoulders back. Again, maintaining that proper core position and breathing. And we can do, let's say, 5 repetitions of each one. The next one is the letter, I guess, inverted V. And again, this is going to allow us to sort of stretch this a little bit by pulling our fingers down towards the floor and slightly rotating our fingers back and our shoulder blades slightly together. This is all in preparation for an exercise that we can do throughout the day called the Brugger's maneuver, and I'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to go and turn my chair to the side, or actually I'm going to turn my body to the side so you can see the position of my core. And through here, I'm still on my sits bones. I'm sort of lifting this up, but not bringing my chest out and not rotating my chest this way, but then holding this up and keeping this position, I can hold on to the side and do these exercises. I can do the W, the row, and the inverted V. You can also do that with an assist. Again, we're using our towel because some people can't bring their arms down quite so far. So we're going to start with the towel, and we're going to keep the towel in front of us so that we don't have to do anything with our head. And we're going to bring our arms down and back. Nice and easy, keeping our core. And again, a set of 5. Holding this way, and a set of 5. We can do both of those very easily. Now, if you're doing this without the towel, you don't have to repeat it with the towel. If you're doing the towel, you don't have to do it without your arms. That is for your chest, upper back, strengthening, stretching and strengthening, and for your neck. Now we're going to work on the shoulders. Again, a lot of us can't reach behind our backs and get our hands to meet. So you can use a towel for this. I'm going to come to the side so you can see where my hands are, and I'm just gently going to go up to a position where I can feel that stretch. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I just corrected my posture from being in a extended position to my low back and brought it to a more neutral position. So I'm able to breathe through my whole back, and I can stretch that shoulder for about 20 or 30 seconds. I can then switch and work on the other shoulder. And you can repeat that a couple of times. So if you were going to do a break during the day, you could do your stretches for your upper back and neck. You can do the stretches for your pectoralis muscles, and you can do the stretches for your shoulders. If you want to stretch your lower back, and I would suggest that you do something during the day to get up out of your chair and move around, you can use a stairway for a modified hip flexor stretch, and we'll get to that in another video. Now I'd like to...
Next, we're going to move to some strengthening exercises called isometric and isotonic. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, we've talked about an isometric exercise. An isometric exercise is an exercise that has the muscle contract, but the joint doesn't move. You're going to give yourself just enough resistance that you resist the movement of the joint, but not so much that you're actually overly contracting the muscle. The body actually gets a physiological effect or an increased effect of an extra 10 degrees, even though you're not moving the joint. So it's a very helpful exercise going forward. We're going to do all 6 ranges of motion in the head and neck, and we're going to hold for approximately 5 seconds. Now, if you can't do this, or if it's uncomfortable, you can reduce that amount to about 1 to 2 seconds and then build up to 5 seconds for each motion. If you do head flexion, extension, right and left rotation, and lateral flexion, that would be considered 1 set. And we'd like you to do eventually up to 5 sets during the day. Remember to stop and take some time and practice these. Also, you have isotonic exercises. Now, I'm going to be using the TheraBand for this, but we can use a variety of different tools. And that contraction is really a contraction where the joint actually moves while the muscle contracts, while we're putting resistance on the muscle. I'd like you to work within the mid-range of the muscle because that's considered the strongest part of the muscle. Resistance should be light to begin with, and as the neck strengthens, you can increase resistance, or if we're talking about repetitions, you can increase repetitions. If you're able to do 10 repetitions easily for one of these exercises, you can progress the exercise by either increasing to a second set, which will eventually get to 10, and then a third set, which will eventually get to 10, or you can increase the resistance with the TheraBand. And we're going to add an additional exercise called a chin retraction.
Hi, it's Dr. Leonard again, and now we're going to be talking about some exercises that will help both strengthening and flexibility. First, we're going to be talking about the neck. Now, in order to strengthen the neck, we can do it in a variety of ways. The first way is to talk about isometric contractions. And if you've been watching my other videos, and if not, I'll review. An isometric contraction is a contraction where the joint doesn't move, but the muscle moves. And in this case, we're talking about the head. But we're not talking about it in a negative way. This time we're talking about it in a positive way. So an isometric contraction is a contraction where I want the head to move, or the head to start to move and to have me resist it. Now what that's like is if I was bringing my arm up like this, if I can put just enough pressure to stop my arm from moving and get that muscle to contract, that's enough pressure for what we're going to use in our neck and head. So we're going to do 6 motions. We're going to do flexion, we're going to do extension, we're going to do lateral flexion to one side or the other, and we're going to do rotation from one side to the other. So let's start with flexion. Palms of my hands on my forehead. I'm going to look down and sort of bring my chin in and resist that motion. And I should feel some strengthening or some sensation in through this area. And I'm going to hold that for 5 seconds. Then I'm going to come back and do extension. So now I'm going to look up and sort of keep my chin retracted, but bring my head back a little bit and hold for 5 seconds. And we're going to do right and left lateral flexion for about 5 seconds. 5 seconds, and now rotation. I'm going to take the same thenar pad of my hand and place it on this front part of my head, and I'm going to look to the right, which will be the left, which will be my right. And then I'm going to look to your left, or your right. And we can do a set of 5 of those. What's nice about an isometric contraction is that it allows you to exercise, and the body thinks you're actually exercising an extra 10 degrees. So you have that physiological effect of 10 degrees of motion, even though you're not moving the head. And you can do that. If you have neck pain, you can do that in a progressive manner. So I can do about 5 seconds here, 5 seconds here, 5 seconds here, and the same with all the other exercises, and get a full range of strengthening and not have to worry about irritating my neck. The other way you can do that is by using a resistance band. This is made by TheraBand. It's an excellent company. I'm going to put this, and what I'm going to do is hold this and do the same exercise with a little bit of resistance. I can do it to the side. And look, I'm doing very small motions so I don't irritate myself. And if I get stronger, I can increase that range of motion. And then backwards. And rotation. I can do it to all ranges of motion. Now let's look at it from the side, especially for the chin retraction and extension, because I'm going to ask you to do both. So the chin retraction is the same exercise we were doing when we had just the isometric contraction, and we're going to bring the chin sort of back in this direction and letting the top of the head rise up, but not rotate down. An extension, that motion, and like that. So we're going to do 7 motions, really. We're going to do the 6 motions. If you're able to do the isometric contraction without any pain, we're going to be doing flexion, extension, rotation, and lateral flexion, as well as chin retraction. And that's great for going forward. We'll look at the mid and upper back next.
So now we've done exercises that we may be able to do throughout the day, but we can also incorporate some of those exercises once or twice a day to help build strength. Now we can talk about the exercises we talked about in the beginning of the videos that can be performed not just in a seated position or in a standing position, but can be performed against the wall. The letter W and V exercises, or inverted V exercises, are the exercises we can do against the wall. When you are standing against the wall, feet shoulder width apart, you can place your hands in what I like to call the New York hold-up position. So you are standing, someone is, asking you for your money, you put your hands up. You're going to place your shoulder blades and your elbows and your pinkies against the wall. And what you're going to do is you're going to rotate your wrists and hands outward and place some pressure against the wall with your pinkies and the outer portion of your wrists. And then you're going to be pulling the shoulder blades slightly down and back, and that will create a strengthening exercise for your mid-upper back. For the inverted V, you're also going to have your back against the wall and your feet shoulder width apart. You are going to have your hands down at your sides now, and you are going to now rotate your thumbs and wrists towards the wall. And you are going to do the same thing. But remember, we talked about at the beginning of our videos that you're going to feel like there's a string attached to each one of your fingers, and they're going to be pulled down towards the floor. And you can also then rotate and keep the shoulders down and open up the chest a little bit and feel the shoulder blades sort of approximate each other in the back, the shoulder blades meaning the wing bones. And you can also utilize the towel, as we showed you before, and the TheraBand, and you can do this a series of 1 to 2 sets, or maybe 3 sets of approximately 10 repetitions per set. And if you're able to do the first set easily, then you can do a second set, building with 2 or 3 repetitions and eventually to 10. And if that becomes easy, a third set, or if you're using the TheraBand, you can increase the resistance in addition.
So this is Dr. Leonard again, and we're going to be looking at the mid-upper back strengthening, and we're going to be using the towel. Now remember, we used the towel before when we were doing the rows. So it's a similar exercise. We're going to be coming up overhead and bringing our arms down for a set of 5. You can progress to a set of 10 and eventually 3 sets of 10. We can be coming from the horizontal position and going back into a row. Now, I'm doing it with my feet shoulder width apart, but I'd like to emphasize that I'd like you to do it in a split position. As long as you have balance and you can open up your legs a little bit wider for balance, you can do the same exercise. And I'll tell you why I do that in a second. So these are just seated rows, and this is the overhead pull down, which is similar to the W position. The reason I do that is because I like my center of gravity underneath myself, and this allows me to keep my core integrity and allows me to breathe through my whole body without being tipped forward or slouching. The next thing I'd like to show you is the TheraBand. Now the TheraBand is a really good tool, and it's very inexpensive, and it can be used in a variety of different ways, as we saw when we did the cervical exercises. This is a good resistance tool that you can use for strengthening your back. This is similar to the seated row or the standing row, and what I'm doing is I've tied it and I've got my fingers inside, and by going like this I already have neurologically cued myself to bring my shoulders back. Now I'm going to put myself in my split stance position. I'm going to make sure my core integrity is firm but not stiff. I'm going to continue to breathe through my whole body. I'm going to bring my head in a more neutral position, and I'm just going to bring my shoulder blades back and open my shoulders up. Now I'm not doing this exercise. What I'm doing is this exercise. And I would do it for 3 or 5 repetitions, and as you get stronger, you can increase that. Let's look at it from the side. Now these exercises can be done one time a day or approximately twice a day, and they're there to help you build some strength in your mid upper back and open up this area for you. But remember, the key is to keep this area with integrity, because you don't want to be going like this or like this. You want to be able to keep your body underneath you. And you want to keep this cylinder, this core, directly underneath your body. I think if you look at my first video on home ergonomics and the desk office, the dining room desk or the dining room office, then what we talked about is that this is the most important area of your body to maintain integrity in through here. Because if I collapse here, this comes forward and this comes forward. Now I can keep this forward and bring my upper body up into alignment by increasing the integrity of my core, and I already gain about 20 degrees that way. And then if I want to increase good posture over my head and neck, over my body, I can just do a simple chin retraction. So that's it for now, and we'll do other videos in the future.
So we have mid back strengthening versus the previous videos. It's showing that this can be done standing. You can also do it in a seated position. Difference between postural cueing and strengthening. We've been using a towel. We will continue to do that, which gives us static resistance, or we can use a TheraBand, doing the same exercises we did with the towel, which can increase resistance by increasing the tension on TheraBand. And we can use it instead of the towel for these progressions. The next is going to be Brugger's maneuver. Brugger's maneuver is a combination of a culmination of a lot of the movements we've just did. It engages core awareness. It utilizes scapular mobility and strengthening of the mid back. It gives you an awareness of where your head and neck are in relative to the rest of your body, and helps you strengthen your neck and upper back. It can be done in conjunction of the exercises that we showed at the beginning video throughout the day. You should try to do this 4 to 6 times a day. Now, there's a caveat. If your back starts to bother you because you're doing these too aggressively or too often, you should back off on the number of repetitions. You should increase it and utilize it with the stretches, and you should start the Brugger's maneuver with a number of low repetitions. Eventually, I'd like you to do a set of 10 at each break, but if that seems to be too much, you need to build up over a period of time. Doing these exercises with the stretches over a period of 2 weeks, you'll begin to feel the effect. Before then, it's a little hard to feel it.
So putting all the exercises together that we just talked about, the stretching of the neck, the stretching of the upper back and chest, and the idea of a core position, I'm going to give you something called the Brugger's maneuver, which combines a lot of different movements for stabilization and stretching at the same time. And I would suggest that you do this multiple times through the day, which I would mean by that is 4 to 6 times a day if you're sitting at your desk for a long period of time. So in Brugger's maneuver, we're going to be sitting on our sits bones, our legs will be shoulder width apart, our feet will be flat on the floor. We're going to keep this core position without collapsing or hyperextending. And what I mean by that is, I'll show you in a second, we're going to try to keep our head in what we call a neutral position. And we are going to keep our hands down at our sides. And remember how I said that we had a string attached to each one of our fingers in the first video, and the string is pulling our fingers down towards the floor. Our fingers will be pulled down towards the floor, and our shoulder blades will come slightly together. Now, maintaining this position, once I set this, and I'll consider that my neutral position, the head slightly retracted, that the chin going back is called a retracted position, or I like to call it the Marine head position. So it's almost like you're going to salute someone. You're going to hold this core position, fingertips pull down towards the floor, bring the shoulder blades back slightly and relax. Down towards the floor, back slightly and relax. And you can do a set of 5 of those, and if that's comfortable, do a set of 10, and then you can repeat that through the day. So we'll go to a next.
So here's the wrap up. I've given you some basic tools to utilize throughout the day, and you can mix and match some of these as you feel comfortable with them. Some of the exercises which will support and enable us to do these are exercises that will enable us to support ourselves and enable us to perform these tools. Remember, don't forget, if you need to contact me with any questions, I am available. And here is my email down at the bottom. Or if you need to contact me and forget my email, just go to urshowchiropractic.com and there's an ability to email me directly through the website. So if you like these videos, please leave comments, hopefully positive comments on the YouTube channel, or you can also like them on Facebook. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope this helps you going forward with your overall workday.